This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
I'd like to call the Board of Fire Commission meeting for Tuesday, December 20th, 2022 to order. I'd like everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'd like to ask for the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting of the Board of Fire Commission held on Tuesday, November 22nd, 2022. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Chief's report.
Good evening, all. Chief's report. We'll start with alarms. 2021, at this time, we were at 4,725 alarms. As we sit here today in 2022, we've eclipsed the 5,000 mark. We're at 5,028 alarms. So it looks like 2022 is going to be the busiest year that we've ever had on record, and that's despite us trying to eliminate as many calls as possible by sending an ambulance only to incidents, by removing some non-emergent calls a number of years ago. We've done pretty much all that we can. We cut out pump outs for volunteers in the last couple of years. These are all legitimate emergencies now, and it seems like it's just going to continue to climb. No particular rhyme or reason that we can find in terms of trends. It's just inherently getting busier. So again, we're at 5,028 as we sit here this evening. So a difference of 303 alarms from this time last year.
What was the 2021 number? Sorry.
4,725. Our last commission meeting occurred on November 22nd, so the below numbers are going to cover a time period of 11/22 until December 19th. So since that time, we provided ALS intercept or transport on 15 different occasions, with 13 different incident responses to the highway, 93 incidents in which just an ambulance responded and we were not required to have to send any fire department assets. 58% of our calls were EMS related. And with 404 incidents since the last time we met, 101 of which occurred at the same time, it accounts for a 25% overlap of our calls. Regarding the budget, I'll bring us through period 6. Just keep in mind, period 6 we're still in. It's still only December 20th. So at this time through period 6 last year, we were at 55%. This year we're at 47.3%. Regarding permit fees, we've collected just over $13,500 since our last meeting, which brings our total for this fiscal year to just about $236,000. Some staffing impacts that are going to have an effect on the budget. We did have one captain retire on September 30th, and we've had that vacancy ever since that we've been filling with overtime. The commission is due to interview that individual tonight, a couple of individuals for that position anyways tonight, and that'll fill that void. Just understand it will now leave a lieutenant void, and so that will now be filled with overtime until we get to a position to fill that. My intent is to have a lieutenant's test in the month of January or February. We've had one member out on military leave for the last couple of months, and we've had pretty limited COVID absences, although sick time is still very high. A lot of sick time being used, and I have one potential injury that occurred at a recent fire that may lead to a long-term injury, and we can discuss that in further details in executive session. But those are certainly impacting the budget right now, particularly that contractual replacement staffing line. Regarding the fire marshal's office, the commission was provided with packets prior to the meeting. Again, the first page, which shows the percentage of calls, I would anticipate that changing in the next couple of months. This is being sourced from that software system that we're replacing, that we've had in place since about 22, 23 years now. And so that will look different, entirely different. I'm interested in seeing what kind of reports we can pull from that and provide you some more insight. List of fires is provided with your report, as well as a number of inspections that were taking place by the fire marshal's office. This last couple of weeks been particularly busy with several of the fires that have occurred that I'm sure you've seen in the news. The holidays upon us and a lot of shopping that's taken place, so that puts a higher demand on some of the inspections we do in some of our retail areas and so forth, and even things like FedEx and UPS and our big shipping outlets require additional inspections during that time of year because of the volume that's being pushed out. And so it's been a pretty busy period since our last meeting in the fire marshal's office. Otherwise, I have nothing further to report, and I have a few things under executive session we can cover later.
Very good. Any questions of the chief regarding his report? I'd like to just say that I was really taken back when I saw the number of cooking fires that took place over the last month. It looked like 8 cooking fires that we had. Is that the major cause of fire, chief, in our town thus far?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons that we're tracking it. There's no doubt that cooking fires are always going to be in the top 3, without a doubt.
Okay.
So we've sent out some correspondence in terms of the town calendar, and in some of our apartment complexes, we'll visit with the fire marshal staff and educate the residents on safe cooking practices and so forth. That's a huge concern for us in those condensed type living spaces with multiple apartments. So we get out there, we do the best we can for fire prevention.
Good. And I was pleased to see that, year to date, we're looking at $236,000 of revenue coming in from permit fees, 13.5 this last month. That's a significant number. Any other questions of the chief regarding his report? Hearing none, we'll move on to correspondence. Any commissioners receive any correspondence?
I have one correspondence from Northeast Company, addressed to Northeast Company 4, and it is for their assistance with a public service event recently. I can pass it to the commission for their awareness.
Thank you, Chief. As a result of communication that we had in discussion last month, this commission asked me to draft up a letter to our first selectman, Michael Frieda. Each of you have a copy of the letter I'm going to read this evening. This was dated December 6th. First Selectman Michael Frieda, Town of North Haven. Dear Mr. Frieda, on behalf of the Town of North Haven Board of Fire Commission, I'm writing to express our concern with ongoing contract negotiations. The Fire Chief, Paul Januszewski, has presented the Board of Fire Commission with various proposals over the last several months to consider being incorporated into the labor contract. Most recently, the Commission was informed of there being dismissal applications submitted for the position of career firefighter, paramedic. This is quite alarming to the Commission, considering our need to replace positions in a timely manner to avoid negative budgetary and operational impacts on the fire department. The contract proposals the Fire Commission were made aware of would provide financial savings to the town, improve operations, increase recruitment, retainment, and efforts. The Board of Fire Commission requests an update from the Fire Chief on November 22nd, 2022 during the regular Commission monthly meeting, and learned that at that time that the Fire Chief was not part of ongoing negotiations. Furthermore, the Commission learned that there was no attorney present during those multiple meetings that occurred. This is the first such time the Fire Commissioners, some serving as long as 20 years, are aware of the Fire Chief being excluded from negotiations. This is unacceptable to the Fire Commission, particularly when the individual representing the town is conducting negotiations solely with only a few months of employment with the town. The Commission has tasked the Fire Chief to pursue language changes within the labor contract to improve fire department operations, particularly as it relates to recruitment, retention. First Selectman Frida, you have always stated and felt that department heads should be a part of negotiations, so the commission asks why should now be any different? The board's understanding is that multiple negotiation meetings have occurred already with only Rich Monaco present, represent the town, and several labor union negotiation members also being present. While Rich Monaco has been the chairman of the Board of Finance for the last several years, he has no experience in municipal labor negotiations, nor does he have any perspective on the historical significance of existing contractual language and the impact it has. The commission requests that moving forward, Fire Chief Januszewski is present for all negotiation meetings involving the labor union. Furthermore, we would ask the proposals the fire chief has prepared are incorporated into the negotiations and that he remains a part of the decision process. I would appreciate hearing from you promptly to discuss this matter further. Respectfully, Pasquale Nuzzolillo, Chairman of the North Haven Fire Commission, with copies to Chief Januszewski and the Board of Fire Commission. Having sent this commission, this letter on behalf of our commission, I did receive an immediate call from Michael Frida, who indicated to me that he will have, and he did have, communications and meetings with Rich Monaco. He did meet with our chief, and he indicated that the chief would be part of future negotiations. That was my discussion with him, and I told him that I was taken back by the exclusion of our chief, and especially as he articulated to us throughout these last months in preparation for negotiations, the kind of additions and subtractions to the labor negotiations that he was planning on proposing. So that was my discussion with Michael. He did have a conversation, and the chief did confirm that with Rich Monaco. And I'm going to pass this on to the chief at this point as to what your communications have been with Michael Frida regarding this issue.
Sure. So following the letter, I also have a conversation with First Selectman, and Rich Monaco and I met on one particular day, and I was updated on where we stood in terms of negotiations, and then on the 12th, there was a negotiations date, which I did attend, and then from that point on, there's been no further meetings.
Thank you for doing this, because I think this was important.
I impressed upon Mike how important it was to this commission, and he agreed. And I was pleased that he reached out to the chief and to myself as quickly as he did. And I was very pleased that our chief was involved with the very next meeting that took place. My understanding was that there was supposed to be preliminary guidelines that were supposed to be discussed during the initial meetings or meeting. But again, as I said to him, I was taken back that there was more than one preliminary guideline meeting that took place excluding our chief.
Yeah.
So I think we're on the right track. I believe as we move forward into next year with the continued negotiations, my expectation is that our chief will be part of that. Any other communications received? Hearing none, we'll move on to old business of the fire department. Chief?
Old business, the only things I had to bring up to speed tonight is we are still waiting on the leased engine, which we were promised by a local vendor. I spoke with him as recently as today, a representative of that company, and he assures me it's coming. They want to make sure that when it arrives, it has absolutely no issues with it, and it's not being taken out of service for any particular reason. So I was reassured again today that it should be here soon. The apparatus that was struck on the highway remains out of service with no end in sight in terms of it being out of service. It is in pieces and needs quite a bit of repair still, and we're waiting on now more parts from Pierce Manufacturing. So again, no timeline on that. I expect it to be still several months away. The pursuit of purchasing a used apparatus is not going well. It seems that the used market for apparatus is not what it once was. Being told a number of different contributing factors because of that, one of them being the recent hurricane in Florida that swamped a number of fire stations and apparatus. Those departments all went out and had to explore other options to be able to buy used apparatus to make it work after they had engines and trucks that were in floodwaters that were completely irreparable. So it just seems like the timing of us trying to find a used apparatus is not working in our favor. I've had 3 that we considered pretty seriously. One that we sent a mechanic out to, I may have mentioned this last month, and you know what we want to be careful of is we're not buying another problem. That's certainly not what we're looking to do. So while we continue to search for something else, it's not something that we have in the works right now. And I just want the commission to realize as well, we are in dire straits still with apparatus. We have 2 that are ordered that will not be in until sometime next year. We're hoping sometime in late fall, but I wouldn't be surprised if we get a phone call saying that that's going to be delayed further. I network with fire chiefs throughout the state regularly, throughout the nation periodically. This is the same thing everywhere. The new apparatus, if you were to place an order right now for a new engine, you're looking at 40 months. If you're trying to place an engine for a new ladder, you're looking at about 5 years. That's the kind of timeline that we're looking at. And so we placed this order for these engines a long time ago. So we're not quite looking at that, but we are still looking at significant delay in receiving them. So in the meantime, we have a fleet of engines that we are doing all that we can to keep together. But I need the commission to realize how much this is impacting our operations. This station alone, the Mono East station you're sitting at, in the last 2 months, hasn't had an engine for its volunteer to respond with for probably about a month to 5 weeks. Because if I have to take an engine out of service because there's no engines left, unfortunately I'm going to pull it from here when there's a career engine that's responding from here as well. But this is having now residual effects on our ability to retain our volunteers and our ability to be able to supply enough apparatus on fire scenes. A fire only a couple of weeks ago, we ran out of air bottles on scene. Just ran out of air bottles. Can you imagine having to fight a fire and not having enough air to go do it? Because we don't have enough apparatus responding to the scene, or enough personnel even responding to the scene to be able to do that. We had to keep engines from other towns in our town for a longer period of time to cover other incidents that were occurring, because even if I were to call back staff, career staff, to fill, I don't have any apparatus to put them in because we don't have any left. So it's really creating an issue for us, and I hope that when we do finally come up with a resolution, if it's a used apparatus, that we get the support to do so, because we need to start taking this seriously, and we need to start replacing our apparatus in a timely fashion. We cannot go 8 years without replacing engines anymore, and that's what's been done in the past. It's too long. We're paying the price now for something that was not of our doing, but certainly we're paying the price for it.
So
Sure.
the current apparatus that we have, you just mentioned ladder trucks will take 5 years to get in. Where are we with what is the condition of and the age of what we have currently?
So the oldest, we still have a 1987 in service. That is going to be that's one of the engines. That is going to be one of the first ones replaced with the 2 that we have coming. And then I'm not going to make a commitment on the other engine that we'll replace. You would think that it would be the next oldest, but sometimes the older ones are holding together better than some of the newer ones. So we'll see where we stand. But my gut tells me that we're going to be in a year from now, when we have 2 more that come in, our oldest engine will be somewhere around 18 years old.
But
20 years old.
separate the ladder truck.
Ladder trucks are completely separate.
Yeah. So because you said 5 years for the ladder trucks.
Yeah.
What is the status of our ladder trucks?
Ladder trucks right now are both fine, but just understand, like, the main ladder truck is getting used a lot because it's responding to a lot of calls.
Do you know how old that one is?
It's probably 5 to 6 years old, or 5 years old. And the spare that we bought besides, unfortunately the network is down. I can't pull the exact dates up for you. It's about 16 years old.
Okay.
Thereabouts.
So if I'm understanding,
My,
Jen, what
my,
you said, let's
my
get ahead
question
of,
is,
let's get ahead of.
yeah, I'm thinking of, if we're talking about 5 years,
Yeah,
and
Yeah.
that should be somewhere on our radar now, because if
It's
we-
in our capital budget.
Okay,
So if you look at a capital budget, I don't normally have done that, but now just knowing that we're gonna have to order it maybe 3 to 5 years in advance, let's say things get a lot better in the next couple of years. Maybe it's now 2 years or 3 years and not 5. It's in the capital budget now
Okay.
to start replacing that.
okay.
Yep.
there's no question, we need to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just did, as soon as you said 5 years, then
Sure.
immediately I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so where are we at?
So we have a 16-year-old, 5 years
Yes.
from now, which is 21 years
Yeah.
old.
Right.
We need a ladder truck.
Yeah.
Well, 100%.
Otherwise, school poster contest for fire prevention was a success this year. I'm very happy with the school's system and Superintendent Patrick Sturk in supporting that effort. We have not supported the fire prevention poster contest in at least 10 years, and I'm glad to see that we've got it back in the school systems now. We had really good participation, and we're looking forward to some awards soon. And I want to thank the 3 volunteer associations that donated some money so that we can provide some gift cards to the winners. And that's what I have for old business.
Any other questions of the chief regarding old business? New business of the department chief.
New business initial budget proposals have been provided to the First Selectman's office and the Finance Director. You have the dates for that. I've heard nothing further from either office regarding our budget proposals. Negotiations are ongoing. The contract expired June 30th of 2022, so we look forward to ongoing negotiations. We're working pretty diligently to fill a few roles right now in the fire department. We have 2 vacancies that we're dealing with, as well as we have the approval to hire the 2 additional firefighters now mid-fiscal year. And so we're looking for 4, and it's becoming very challenging. I've said this in the past. It's becoming very challenging to get people who are still interested in being firefighters. It is not like it was even 5 years ago. The decline in interest in this profession is remarkable, and we're part of that state consortium list, as well as about 16 other fire departments in the state. And this list has half the number of people that are interested in being firefighters as it did 2 years ago. So it's becoming more and more challenging to find firefighters. It's the last thing I wanted to do is become, you're interviewing almost as many people as you have positions for, and we're getting pretty close to that at times, particularly when it comes to paramedics. There are not enough paramedics out there for all the fire departments out there. It's a very, very competitive market for paramedics. One of the things why I'm pushing so hard for some changes in the contract, because we've got to become more competitive. We have created one of the best EMS systems in the state, and I know that because I get phone calls from chiefs and from mayors asking how we did it. That's contingent upon us being able to provide ALS paramedics through the fire department to those scenes. And if we can't attract paramedics any longer, then it's going to have an impact on our EMS delivery in town. So I'm watching it closely. We had interviews tomorrow, but just know that it's getting harder and harder to find enough applicants, even EMTs.
Yeah, I think public safety is an issue on a national level, whether it be fire or police. And certainly recruitment is down significantly across the country, which is going to impact each and every one of us as residents.
I saw on the news a while back, some school that was running a course at the high school that were actually helping to get kids into EMT training. I think it was in Southington or someplace up in that
Yeah.
direction. I wonder if we could talk to the high school about that, because it was a way to get kids interested and somewhat, starting their training at the high school level, and they were getting credits for it. Can't remember all the details. I can find it, but I think that might be something we.
There's some programs out there. The principal and I, Rustelia, have had a conversation in the past about trying to bring that to town. I've talked to some of the fire chiefs that are doing that. It's very expensive. It's very timely to do. You need to have staff dedicated to being able to be there. that for that many hours and be able to provide some mentoring and some tutoring and so forth.
I don't think the department was actually running it. I think this was happening at the school level, and they might have been pairing with one of the community colleges.
Sure.
I'll have to go back and find that information, but it looked very interesting, and it wasn't necessarily pulling from the department where it was coming from. So, but I'll see if I can find those details and
Chief,
get them to you.
is there an explanation of what the decline, why there's a decline?
There's some theories. Some of the theories are simply that there's better paying jobs out there. The schedule, people, the generation that we're trying to attract now, they don't necessarily they want a flexible work schedule. They want to be able to work from home and have flexible hours. They don't necessarily want to be told you have to work these days and you have your schedule for the next year, 2 years in some cases. Seems to be one of the biggest reasons in terms of why. And it also, I can back that up with the fact that even this seems like the newer firefighters that we're hiring, they don't want to work any overtime. What perhaps you and I were accustomed to growing up and taking overtime and so forth, they have no interest in doing so. And that's everywhere. It's across the whole state. I talk to fire chiefs every day, and they have the same frustrations. So I think it definitely gives some merit to the fact that I think the schedule is something that is an impact right now. So I always go back to schedule, pay, and the fact that if you're going to go to college to become a paramedic or whatever, you can go to college and become a nurse or a PA in almost the same amount of time and make substantially more money.
And schedule, you mean the 24-hour schedule?
Well, the 24, not just 24-hour schedule, just the fact that it's not flexible. You have your days you have to work, and you have to work holidays, and you have to work nights, and you have to work weekends, and there's no getting around it. That seems to be one of the biggest concerns.
Chief, you mentioned pay, and I know you polled chiefs around the state between benefits and defined benefits and 401ks and annual compensation, and that's another detriment to us as far as where we currently are from that standard in compensation and bennies and retirement. So I think there are people that absolutely want to work in North Haven because they're from North Haven, and maybe they were volunteers and they transitioned into full-time firefighters. But there are other folks that are, it's about the money. It's not the money, but it's the money, and it's the retirement. I worked 20 years, and I know I have a defined benefit at the end of that period of time. So in addition to the benefits and the annual compensation, we're dealing with a reduced number of persons who are interested in the profession, and here we are trying to deliver. We just reported that we had the largest number of alarms, 5,028 in this year, and we're having difficulty filling positions. It's not going to be an easy task.
Yeah, I did an analysis the last couple of weeks to see. So, knowing that the paramedic candidates are the hardest candidates to attract because they're the most in demand. And any given year, there's about 30 paramedics that are graduating. So, if you figure about 30 paramedics are out there that truly want to be firefighters, there's more than that graduate, maybe 50, 60 at most. Half of those want to be firefighters. So let's go with that number of 25 to 30. And you have other departments that we're competing with that are hiring paramedics as well. We're one of only 3 in the state that I could find that are 401k. Everybody else in the state is still offering a defined contribution plan. So that puts us at a huge disservice when we're trying to attract the best of the best candidates that are out there, and we're not providing the best of the best benefits any longer. When the town made the decision to go to a 401k 10 years ago, while I wasn't part of that decision, I know that the thought process was, well, everybody's going to be going that way. And this will become kind of what happens. That didn't happen. The majority of towns stayed with the defined contribution plan for their police, fire, and even teachers still have a defined contribution. And that didn't happen. And so when I'm trying to attract the best candidates that are out there, and they have 3 or 4 job offers that come up at the same time because they just graduated last month, and 3 or 4 fire departments are trying to attract them, we're very often not in competition with the others.
So the teachers, though, isn't that like a state pension that they
Sure.
put into?
Yeah, it's a TSA.
There's state fire pension plans out there as well, which are still, you can make the argument financially whichever way you want. At the end of the day, though, the word defined contribution or pension still has a ring to it.
Yeah.
And when fathers are telling their sons, don't bother even applying for a job unless it has a pension, we're on the losing end almost all the time.
So is there a way to connect with the state?
There could be. We can certainly pursue that if it's something that comes up.
I know that the town has negotiated with other departments some kind of a hybrid pension. And I think as we move forward, and that's why it's so important for the chief to be part of the negotiations, to articulate this very issue. I know that Mike Frieda has been supportive of a hybrid type of a pension, but I think those are the kind of things that need to be put on the table.
Yeah.
So,
I'll give you some perspective real fast on the numbers. So the last state consortium list, I'm not going to have the numbers exact, but I'm going to be really close. Let's say that there are 800 applicants for all 16 fire departments in the state, us being one of them. Out of those 800 applicants, let's say 300 of them, 350 at the most, had EMT. Those who had a paramedic were less than 20. So that's how hard it is to attract these paramedics that are graduating school.
and I think, Jen, I think you brought this up in the past. We have a number of volunteers, although the ranks have been dwindling down. I'm wondering, and even our newer firefighters, how many of them, if any, would be willing to begin to study to be paramedic, and somehow or another, we underwrite some of that cost or whatever it might be in order to try to in-house groom someone to move into another position.
Yeah.
Those folks have already demonstrated a willingness to come to work and deliver services for the residents of our town. Maybe they're willing to take on some additional responsibility. And you've been an advocate of education, Chief, advanced education for our firefighters and certainly for our senior leaders in our fire department. That might be something that we need to kick around and see, considering it is budget time, maybe to modify our budget to incorporate some educational funds for those that are willing to become a paramedic and stay in our department.
We can look at it. I think the issue, though, is typically not the cost of the paramedic school itself. It's the time
The
commitment
overtime.
to be able to.
Yeah.
It's a time commitment to even be able to attend for 2 years at basically full time.
Sure.
That's usually where the struggle is. But we can look at it.
Yeah, I think we need to start looking outside the box, and if that's an option, and I'm pleased to hear you say we could look at that.
And you might find, businesses who'd be willing to kind of put together sort of like a scholarship fund that could go. I know the Board of Ed has scholarship funds that go into the budget that are restricted specifically for that purpose, like the money can't go anywhere else. So, we could go knock on people's, on the doors of businesses and
There you go,
say-
there you go. Well, I think, as this town continues to grow from the economic development standpoint, and there is a greater need for public safety, the town needs to be responsible to underwrite that cost in my mind. And I think the residents of the town would be willing to do so. Everywhere I go, I hear nothing but praise about how firefighters and paramedics have interacted with their loved ones at the worst possible time. when they had serious emergencies, and we came and delivered quality customer service and expert medical service at the time. So I think and certainly I advocate this all the time, I think the residents need to step up at the time of budgetary discussions, and when the town meetings take place, they need to come up and say, yes, I'm in support of the fire department, and looking to enhance their budget, because they're the recipients of the services that we provide. So, anyway, that's my thing. Anything else, Chief, on new business of the department?
I have nothing.
Good of the fire department?
Nothing to report.
Nope. I see here we have one person here. Any public comments?
I would just like these to know that you're talking about trying to put something forward for the town to cover, we'll say EMT or paramedic school. As the chief has done with training firefighters, I think these folks need to have some skin in the game to actually put their best effort forward if they were to have been offered a training class for this. Years ago, those that, when the town footed the whole bill, it was almost to the point where they, I don't care if I pass or not, I didn't pay for it. But those that have a little bit of skin in the game actually put their nose down to the grindstone and put forth a real valiant effort to pass the class and do it well. I am in full support if you were able to get the town to put forth something, maybe it be an initial down payment for somebody. But these folks would have to put something in themselves to have that skin in the game to, get through the class, do that, good grades, that kind of stuff. The paramedic class itself is pretty expensive. I would say, Chief, it ranks right up there, if not more than the fire academy for recruits. About the same, $6,000 to $7,000 a person. Back in 1988, I paid $1,800 for my paramedic class. It has gone up so much in the last 30 years. And I think that's also why you're not seeing as many paramedics coming out. Because the schools that teach them, they want their money up front. I was able to give when my class was in, I was able to give $200 a month to pay for my class. They don't want that these days. They want the whole nut. So I think it's a great idea to try to offer something to get more folks involved or wanting to get the job or try to get the job. But I think a lot of it has to do with upfront money. That's why you're not seeing as many people go through either. Because people are pinching pennies all around now. That's all I have.
Thank you for your comments. Very much on target. No one else here for public comments. I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session. Second. All in favor? Approved. So I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, December 20th, 2022 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. Commissioner Gallo has a motion to make.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to promote Christopher Spoldi from lieutenant to captain in North Haven Fire Department.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Is there any further business coming before this commission? Hearing none, I'd like to announce that our next regularly scheduled Board of Fire Commission meeting will be Tuesday, January 24th, 2023, at 6 p.m. at Montawees Company 2, 282 Quinnipiac Avenue. And Chief, we've decided on the 27th for a special meeting to be held at 5 p.m. Here at Montauk's Company 2, 282 Quinnipiac Avenue for interviews.
You can actually change that if you like, the headquarters, a little more comfortable. No public's gonna be invited, so it's, if you like, a little easier.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it'll work over at fire headquarters.
Yeah.
Is
good?
it warmer?
It's warmer.
It's warmer.
More comfortable. Yeah, but it's smaller, a little more intimate, so yeah.
So, December 27th at 5 PM at fire headquarters on Broadway for the purpose of interviewing. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. And I would like to wish everyone a happy holiday and a happy, healthy new year. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
This meeting is adjourned.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.